Welcome to the video on what are tall buildings. In this video, you will learn about tall buildings in the context of civil engineering and the scope of their study. So, let us first start with the basic question: what are tall buildings? Well, there is no absolute definition of what constitutes a tall building. The definition is subjective, considered against one or more of the following categories: relative height, proportion, and structural design. Under the relative height category, we call a building as tall, depending on its height relative to the surrounding structures. For example, a 20-story building may not be considered a tall building in a high-rise city filled with skyscrapers. But, in a small town or a suburb, the same building may be distinctly taller than the urban norm, and can thus be called a tall building. Under the proportion category, we may call the numerous buildings that are not particularly high, but are slender enough to give the appearance of a tall building, as tall buildings. On the other hand, there are big buildings with large footprints, which are quite high, but are ruled out of being classed as tall buildings. Most importantly, from the structural design point of view, those buildings, which are subjected to only gravity loads, are not considered as tall buildings. Only those buildings, which are additionally subjected to lateral loads, like wind loads, seismic loads, etc., are referred to as tall buildings. The Council on Tall Buildings and Urban Habitat, an international body in the field of tall buildings and sustainable urban design, further provides two subcategories for tall buildings. Buildings more than 300 meters high are called super tall, and those more than 600 are called mega tall structures. Let's take a look at some of the special characteristics of tall buildings. A tall building may be of single function or mixed use. A single function tall building is defined as one where 85% or more of its total height is dedicated to a single function. A mixed-use tall building contains two or more functions, where each of the functions occupies a significant proportion of the tower's total space. Consider the example, where the Taipei 101, having more than 85% of its height being used for office, is a single-use building. On the other hand, the Guangzhou CTF Financial Center, which has multiple functions, with each function occupying at least 15% of the building height, is a multi-use building. A tall structure may be a building, or a tower, depending on its usage. For a structure to be called as a building, at least 50% of its height should have usable floor area, where humans can occupy themselves, otherwise it is a tower. A building is a co-joined building when 50% or more of the total building height is connected to other buildings. You must be wondering why you need to study about tall buildings as a civil engineer. Well, as the infographic shows, the number of people living in urban areas has been increasing rapidly in the past decades. It has been estimated that, by 2050, 7 out of 10 people will be living in an urban area. This clearly explains that the buildings to be constructed for this increasing population have to be made taller vertically, due to the restricted space in the urban centers. The demands for tall buildings in the coming future can be summarized in these points. Scarcity of lands in urban areas means the buildings have to be made taller to accommodate more people in the same land area. This scarcity is coupled with the increasing demand for building and residential spaces. Technological advancements and innovations in the structural and material designs, from load-bearing walls to framed structure, to newer technologies, has helped in constructing taller and taller buildings, with lesser, but stronger materials. Some countries have constructed some of the tallest buildings in the world, to uplift their cultural significance and prestige. The urge of the human beings to push beyond their limits has helped them to go for taller structures. Now that you have a basic overview of what tall buildings are, in the next video, you will learn about the design of tall buildings. Thanks for watching.